Well, hello everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Crypto Clarity podcast with Node 40. So we've got a guest that Node 40 has been working with for a while at Fuel3, Wendy Barnabo. We've Wendy and I have gotten to know each other over the last year, working on a bunch of client reconciliations, and I thought it'd be great to have Wendy on the podcast as she's really deep in the crypto accounting space. So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Norm, so much. Yeah, this is a great chance to just chat with you because, right, like have talked about so many things together as we've been reconciling and dealing with client stuff. It's been good.
Great. Okay. We usually talk about a little bit of the background of the guest, and I just wanted to introduce the audience to you personally, and then what you do at Fuel 3. But what's your personal background? How did you get into accounting? How did you get into crypto accounting specifically?
Absolutely. And that's what everybody always asks, right? That's the conversation. How'd you get into crypto? Everybody wants to know that from people. I started my career as an accountant, got a 4-year degree, got my CMA, went right into industry. I didn't do public accounting. I liked the idea of making an impact, a real impact inside a company. And so I did that for a number of years, but I was always on the projects. I was always implementing a new general ledger or new reporting or new process of some kind. I never did just journal entries every month. So it's it was a natural progression as I moved towards, out of industry and going to this idea of serving multiple clients in this fractional accounting world that I wanted to do the most complicated stuff. So here we are in crypto. I connected with Mel and Lisa. We've been working together in this space for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, um, supporting the clients that are in heavy in the space and creating in the space and transacting in the space.
Wendy, what was your background? So you started in industry, and then it sounds like you went into fractional accounting. Was that for a lot of trad fight type clients before crypto?
It
Before,
did start out that way. Small local businesses that needed help organizing their stuff and keeping their books in order, or taking their accounting to the next level. It started there, and then it became bigger clients that were growing quickly, needed financial statements to get funding or to, really make some decisions about their business and the direction of it. But back when we were at the prior firm and then at Fuel 3, at the prior firm, we all made a decision. We really want to get involved in this blockchain thing. We really want to be involved in Web3. We believe that it is, going to be a big thing as we get into the future of finance. So we really started to target those businesses and move in that direction.
okay. And when did Fuel 3 come together with Mel and the rest of the team? You said 4 years.
So Fuel 3 is a year and a half old.
Okay.
But we all work together at a different firm that no longer exists right now, but doing very similar work. It's been 5 years.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
And so you've been involved, I guess, in blockchain type work for the last 5 years or so, effectively.
it's been a while. It feels like, but it's like dog years with crypto, right? You could say you've been involved for, 4 or 5 years, but it feels like 15.
Yeah, I know. I know. I've been in crypto for around 3.5 years, but it feels, uh, it feels a lot longer because, fortunately, but unfortunately, in some ways, it seems like people are still, learning about digital blockchain, digital assets out there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right, it just hasn't hit the mainstream. We
Yeah.
talk about this. I see my clients talking about this all the time. This is going to be mainstream, but when? How long is it going to take? What do we need to do to get us there? And that's an ongoing conversation. I feel like we're going to get there. We got some things to do before that's easy,
Yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah, I'm with you. I
for
think the,
sure.
the industry itself has a ways to go from an accounting standpoint and a you know back office data reconciliation standpoint.
Oh yeah, and just user friendliness. Like your average Joe can open a bank account or use his ATM card, but you know, can Sally, open a wallet and transact and buy her concert tickets there? Like we're not there yet.
No, I know. In terms of, yes, everyday user experiences, and my expertise is not building a crypto platform. So
Hmm.
I always am curious as to, we're kind of diverting here, but I'm always curious as to what people are saying. Sometimes I also hear some people saying, oh, the user shouldn't even know they're on a digital asset or crypto platform. Maybe they're on a blockchain platform. Perhaps they won't even know. And it's really the data is being stored and recorded on a blockchain, but the actual ultimate customers don't know. It has to get to the point where it's so easy for them.
Right. It's about the UI. Like it's all about the UI. And if it's easy for customers, for your larger world to just transact in different currencies, whether it's crypto or whether it's, no matter what it is, um, then when that becomes easy and obvious, then it'll be mainstream, I think.
Cool, cool. So Wendy, going to that point, like, are is Fuel3? I know you're focused on digital assets and blockchain. What type of companies are they? Are they trader? Does it have to do with anyone that's involved in crypto, whether they're a trader, whether they're really a picks and shovels type company, or a group issuing tokens? What's the type of client that you deal with?
We've dealt with a lot of different kinds of clients, right? Like we've had creators, we've had traders, we've had some exchanges and platforms that are issuing their own tokens and are, you know, doing trading and providing that liquidity for their users. And we have a couple miners over the years. Definitely. I mean, and we have some non-crypto clients, but what they all have in common, of course, is that they're young, they're fast growing, their needs change quickly, and we can support them through those phases. But yeah, the crypto work, we've done a little of everything. Um,
What are the biggest hurdles you see for clients in terms of their accounting, and what are your taking that into account? What is your biggest recommendation to, this sector? Biggest,
One
yeah.
of the biggest hurdles is that not everybody that's building in this space, right, has followed a career as a business owner. They're engineers and they are, crypto native, and but they're not thinking about financial statements and reporting to a board of directors or how to recognize their revenue so that it's accurate or appropriate, if they're going for loans or they're, needing to show their financial statements to people. A lot of them, a lot of the education we do is showing them, okay, here are all your transactions and here's all the stuff you're doing and building and here's the flow of funds, but what does that mean? Right? Like what is the P&L telling you? So being able to tell the story and have them understand that story is part of what we do. We really do a lot of that education and help them change it as they go. And again, these companies are changing fast. We could get them when they're nothing but a couple of wallets and maybe a fiat bank feed, and the next thing you know, they're multi-million dollar companies. They're revenue generating, they've had a couple series of fundraising, and so how to tell that story and how to present that changes over time too. So keeping them in the loop. Our best clients are looking to us to partner with them on that, not, hey, here's some stuff, go over there and do it in a corner, but really, we're at the table with them, hearing about the next things that they're doing, hearing about the struggles they're having or the decisions they need to make. And then we can provide them with that guidance and with what you really should do is, or what right now you really need is, let's not concentrate on that other thing, and really help them figure out what they need from their finance department.
And Wendy, like you hear like this term being used, which is a great term maybe for, uh, but mainstream media, which is, well, it's all on the ledger. All the accounting is kept on the ledger, or hey, I have my custodial wallet provider, whether it's Coinbase or some other party. Well, they'll get you the data. Is it as simple as that from what you've seen, or is there a lot more work that's needed?
No, it's so not that easy. I mean, first of all, blockchain is not like your bank account. Like if I open up my bank accounting app on my phone, or God forbid log in or like look at an actual statement, you, you see, I spent money at the grocery store, or I bought something at this store, or whatever. The information is there because it has to be. It's regulated that way, and they have to provide you with the information. Where'd the money come and go from? Well, on the blockchain, it's just a transaction hash. going to a wallet that's, this long. As accountants, and a lot of people say this to us, well, it's all on the blockchain. Why can't you just figure it out? It's like, because I don't know who you sent that $10,000 to. Was it an investment? Is it a vendor? Is it a refund? Were you paying for some, inventory item? Are you buying a note? Like, what are you doing? And people don't want to keep track of that stuff. They expect that it's out there and it's obvious, but it's not. And even when you start talking about exchanges and custodians, sometimes there's a place to put in notes and it can get you farther. Absolutely. But it can't get you all the way because my wallet is just a number. It doesn't have my name on it. Sometimes it can if people buy into that, but 90% of the time it's not. So getting that data means that we rely on our clients to know all the wallets that their company is using for all the different purposes. And when engineering is spinning up wallets and testing stuff and things are going back and forth, and like the CFO doesn't know that, or the COO doesn't know that there are other wallets, right? That becomes a big issue because you can't just see where it's going and know for certain that it's either within the company or outside the company or who it's going to. So keeping those records is really important.
And when you mentioned like a fractional CFO, so does do you does Fuel3 set up a system for Fuel3 to start monitoring that? And once you've got the system down, once you got the information down, let's say a client comes in, they're brand new, and you've okay, I finally got a grasp of what they're doing. And now I need to be able to set up a system for future monitoring to understand what the records are. Is that what you do, or do you help the client set up their own system, or is it a bit of both? Do you act as a CFO sometimes for these clients effectively,
Oh,
or are there
absolutely.
times where you help them set up systems where their internal finance person does it?
Absolutely. We work with clients that either have no finance support at all and we figure out what they need. We kind of consider ourselves a bit boutique. We're not going to walk into every client and go, okay, you need the following 12 things or you can't work with us. It's not what we do. We're like, where are you at? What do you need? We're not going to oversell you on what you need. We're going to really, really identify what you do need. And that's important because even if you're in the Web3 space, these different companies need different things depending on their funding, depending on who they're reporting to, depending on where they are in the life cycle of their business. Are they revenue generating, right? And they will be, we hope, but right, some of them aren't there yet. So we look at what they need first and we hear about their pain points and we hear about what they need. And some of them have an internal accountant or CFO or someone in the middle, and they need our assistance getting some things in place, or they're just getting into crypto and they need somebody that knows it to help set that up. So we do everything from setting up internal controls and things that are important for every accounting department, not just Web3, to helping them pick a subledger, helping them organize their wallets. What is your wallet hygiene supposed to be like? I mean, we've been talking about wallet hygiene for 5 years, right? Like if a wallet's for a particular purpose, that is brilliant because it makes the accounting easy. If everything you do is just in one wallet, I'm going to be knocking on your door every week with lists of things going, so what was this? What was this? What was that?
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. It's not efficient for anybody. So wallet hygiene is a thing. And so we walk through these things with people. And sometimes we can convince them to set it up in a certain way. And sometimes they have really good reasons to not. Yeah, I mean, we work all the way from CFO down to like day-to-day transactional accounting with folks, depending on what they need. We do not do taxes. Did I say that? We leave that to the professionals. We work with those guys and gals, but we don't actually do the tax work.
I see. Oh, so you get the data you get the data, the financial statements to a point that maybe the other CPA that actually signs off on returns can do that with the data.
Yep, yep. And a lot of what we do is helping to define, they're like, oh, okay, so you had crypto activity. Because some of these tax accountants, they're not as familiar, right, with the crypto. And they're
I
like,
was going to
so
ask
we
you
can,
that next. Yeah. When did
what,
do your clients do they usually go to a crypto tax person, or do they usually end up with a person that a regular tax person that maybe does TradFi, and that person relies on you sort of to have done the
it
first round?
depends. It depends. Sometimes they have a legacy CPA that they've been using, and as they've either moved from a different business or it's their personal person, or, they got a recommendation from somebody that they're not crypto tax accountants. And we can work with them and explain to them what we have, issue them the reports, the kind of reports that we get out of the subledgers, like, Node 40 has great reports that we usually pull from your system, to say this supports the gains, the losses, the asset balance, here you are. But depending on how complex the transactions are, a lot of times there's questions about how to treat things from a tax perspective. How do you treat these types of transactions, right? Bridging, for example, right? I mean, is it a internal transfer or is it a taxable event? And so we very much recommend that those folks with complicated transactions have a tax accountant that's familiar with the acceptable ways and various ways that there are to handle transactions from a tax standpoint, especially right now because the guidance is still so light from a U.S. tax perspective. It's like we're still waiting to hear, well, how are these things treated? How do we report these things? What are the things that make you say this is a taxable event, not a taxable event, like all of that stuff? It's still in its early stages.
Yeah, our platform, we've been looking at opportunities for our data at Node 40 to be used for 1099 reporting. They came out those regs,
Yes.
and they still deferred on reporting for things like wrapping, bridging, liquidity pool, entering the liquidity pools and exiting, just because I think they just don't want to provide the technical guidance on what those transactions are in the first place. And that it's kind of unfortunate that people have to wait this long. But you're right, it makes it tough for people then to decide, well, what do I do? How, can I go to my regular CPA? It's difficult because they may not have a view on those types of transactions yet.
They may not. And a lot of tax firms are educating themselves, or they're hiring people that are educated, but it's hard. Not every, just like, right, like not every accounting firm and not every tax firm understands like all the nuances. So, we tend to advise people, we recommend some of our tax partners to folks if they don't have somebody already. So we do a lot of that too.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna also mention, I love your points about wallet hygiene. We're a data company, but we see it not maybe the same way you do because you see it on the ground floor. But we'll have, unfortunately, it's difficult at times because we'll have parties that are also using like a degen, like a fund using a degen to as an agent to enter some interesting investments for them. A young person who just you'll have the fund sending assets from multiple parties within their fund ecosystem all into one wallet, and that degen just wants to work with one. The assets are not segregated appropriately, etc., because the degen it finds it easier to trade that way.
Yeah,
She wants to do.
absolutely. And it is easier to just have the one wallet, right? But also, I've seen situations where companies like, okay, I'm going to give this person money to like use, right? Either to create or to trade for me. Um, and then it's like, oh, how do you define that? That person's spinning up also wallets that are taking an income or are having expenses on behalf of the company. You've got to keep track of every single one of those wallets. So wallet create like and it's not TradFi. Like it isn't, but there are some things about it where if you're gonna report on your business and have a handle on enough information to make decisions about your business, if you had a company of 50 people, everybody wouldn't be able to just go open a bank account in the company's name, would they? No, like, or they'd have to get permission or be for purpose. Wallets should be the same most of the time. They should be the same. Somebody's
Yeah.
opening a wallet on a company's behalf. Somebody needs to approve it. Somebody needs to know about it. Somebody needs to tell whoever's in the subledger to make sure they pull that in so that the costs and the revenue are recognized and not misstated.
It's like old school real estate investing. Hey, if you want the facade of your LLC to protect you for each asset, you got to have a bank account for every company. You can't really just now mixing your own personal accounts with the bank account and all that kind of stuff. And it's a pain in the butt, but it helps provide you that additional protection. And if you, like you said, if you have investors involved in your particular structure,
Yep.
ownership structure, it helps protect you, when you have to report to your investors as to, what's going on with the capital.
Yeah. I mean, we've learned a lot with some of the things that have gone wrong in big crypto companies, right, in the last few years.
Yeah.
Um, you got to do it right. and when you're small, you do what you do. But as you grow and become accountable to more people and you look towards what success means for a Web3 company, you've got to follow certain best practices. Or else it could be a mess and it could be a problem.
Yeah. Well, Wendy, we were talking about some of the key points, like some of the 4 or 5 issues, and how you deal with them. Like, companies have missing data or reconciliation issues. They have to track their cost basis, and they're participating on transactions where it's at a high volume where it's difficult to track. What are the approaches you take to try to solve those for companies? Number one, solve some of the issues in the past, and then how do you get them to now be much more efficiently managing that going forward in the future?
Absolutely. So the first thing that we do is we insist that people are using some kind of subledger.
Okay.
Um, if you're trying to do this on a download in a spreadsheet, like it's just not sustainable. And oftentimes you're missing, big pieces, right? Like, and especially, pricing, right? Like, how are you going to consistently price, right? As soon as you get audited or as soon as you have to explain your approach to anybody, you can't, because just pricing assets in a spreadsheet, like, are you going to go hourly? Are you going to go the end of day? What's the end of day? Crypto's 24/7. It's not like at the bank where you could be like USD at 5 p.m. was, or, you can't do that. So, so that's the first thing we do is
And
like, look,
Wendy, really quickly interrupt for maybe audience members that are more
oh
crypto.
yeah.
What is it? What do you mean by the subledger in terms of just?
So absolutely. So when you can see all the stuff on the blockchain, you can open up your wallets, you can log into your exchanges, whatever, and it's all in these all different places, right? But a crypto subledger is basically where you could say these are all of my wallets, bring in all of my data, all of my transactions. By the trend, and you have the transaction hash, and you have the token, and you have the activity, and you can see all the things that are happening in one place. And from an accounting perspective, a lot of the ledgers, right, I mean, you guys do a great job of going, okay, this was a loan and this was staking and this is that. And you can see what your cost basis was, which is super important. You can see what the gains and losses are on things you move. You can see what your unrealized gains and losses are, which leads you to the fair market value of your entire holdings, which is now going to be GAAP required that certain coins are going to need to be reported at fair market value, not just cost basis. So you need all of that information. And if you're trying to do it one wallet at a time, right, that's not sustainable. Some of the exchanges will give you a report, but what it doesn't do is tell you what the transactions were probably for, like we talked about earlier, right? Like you said, that like 1099s, right? Like if you pay somebody in crypto, it's still income to them, and you still have to issue a 1099.
Yeah.
So who did you pay? Like, I don't know, it's a wallet address. I don't know whose wallet address it was, but in a ledger, right? Like you can identify these things and you can make notes and tags and summarize. And some ledgers you can just use that, and you can say, okay, here's what everything was. And some ledgers will connect right to your general ledger, right to your ERP system, right? You got QuickBooks or Zero, or if you're using a NetSuite or a Sage or whatever, they'll literally take all that accounting information that you did here and push it right into your general ledger. So everything just appears on your financial statements. Beautiful thing. It's kind of some magic, actually.
And do you help them with that stage where it's getting the data into the subledger and then the general ledger? Or
Yep.
do they?
Yeah. We help them through all parts of that. Now, I mean, if they take on some of that, whatever, but we help them set it up. We help them make sure that it's going from blockchain to subledger to general ledger, and the financial statements are accurate. I mean, that's kind of the basics of what we do. And on an ongoing basis, sometimes we manage only parts of that, right? If depending on what they take on in their financial structure. But we absolutely have a hand in doing all of it. And in making sure all that's accurate, there's reconciliations that have to be done. I know we were going to talk about that. But you have to be able to say, I can see my balance on chain. or I can have my client run a report off that exchange or that custodian and provide it to me. So I see the balance here. I see the ins, the outs, the fair market value, the cost basis, or I can interpolate that. I can see what is in the ledger. So I can prove that what's out on the blockchain came into my subledger. I have done all the things I need to do to it from an accounting and business perspective. And then I can reconcile from here to make sure it all got in my financial statements accurately. So there's this three-part sort of reconciliation that we do. And then there's this new thing that people are trying to implement is this statement of digital assets as a fourth sort of statement, right? You get your balance sheet, your P&L, your cash flow, or your burn analysis, depending on how you do that. And then it's a statement of digital assets. These are my sources. This is everything that came in. This is everything that went out. Here was the cost basis of movement. Here was the gain loss on the movement. And you can literally have a statement of account for all your digital assets in one place.
Oh, so it's like kind of a subset of your financials.
Yep, absolutely.
And that statement of digital assets would make its way somewhere into the balance sheet or the income statement. If you, I guess, especially if you're like a company that has you transact in multiple outside of digital assets, both digital asset native and
Absolutely. And most digital asset companies end up with fiat stuff too, right? Like they're
yeah.
going to have a couple of bank accounts and maybe, maybe some of their clients still pay them in fiat. It's hard in this world to only be, digital assets.
So Wendy, and then did you go through a system once you've cleaned them up, like do you have protocols in place for, hey, if your team opens up a new wallet, sets up a new wallet address, give me XYZ information. Is that wallet address going to be used to pay vendors? Is that wallet address going to be the treasury holding? Well, what is that going to be? And is that how you are able to you've cleaned up a mess. Let's say you've cleaned up a mess. Is that how you're able to now get them going for the future?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're like, here are all the wallets we have. Is this all the wallets we have? Please check with your engineering team. Please check with, your co-founders, your co-owners. And then we identify what those are, do as much of the hard coding in the ledger that we can because we know what all those wallets are. And then it's reviewing transactions on a regular basis, whether we're writing rules that we know in the ledger that can be assigned to different wallets or types of transactions or interaction with certain smart contracts, right? Like if smart contract is a staking smart contract, it's always going to be a staking smart contract. So you know that those transactions, what's happening there. So we do the accounting, but there's going to be stuff we don't know. Hey, you're interacting with a new smart contract. Hey, you just got in all this money. Ooh, where did it come from? Right. So that constant communication, sometimes we meet as often as weekly with our clients going through questions, or we send them a spreadsheet of, hey, we have the following transactions. Can you give us more detail on these? Who'd the money go to? Where did it come from? What was the purpose? So yeah, we implement those processes for people and we communicate with them how we need to. I mean, some clients are really, really happy to get on the phone and do it once a week with us, spend a half hour, go through those questions. Some of them are like, that's great. Can you send us a spreadsheet? We'll look at it tomorrow. Absolutely, right? So
Yeah.
but it's still the process. The process is the process.
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't obviously we don't do the accounting like you do with
Right,
the company, but we still have to deal with clients, and we have similar type of issues. We have to send them the
right,
spreadsheets to say, hey, look, this is your list of wallet addresses for last year. Let's say let's say it was a tax return.
right.
We have that coming up now, where some people have used this for tax, and our analyst team will say, okay, well, this is what we have. Is it the same wallet addresses? Because otherwise, if you have set up a new wallet address and you did a transfer out from one address to the other, we're going to show that as a disposition. We're going to show that as somebody just sending your Ethereum to somebody else.
Right.
So you've got to enter that wallet address in for us to automatically programmatically analyze it as a
Oh
transfer.
yeah. Yeah, you guys are dealing with the exact same thing and your analysts are brilliant at being able to figure all that stuff out. I mean, they've solved a lot of things for us when we're like, we don't know what that contract does or what is happening here with this transaction. You get these transactions in DeFi that are like, 15 lines long. By the time you send something out and you transfer it to this, and then you stake it in here, and then you add liquidity there, and then it comes back, and you're like, okay, but net, what happened there? Can somebody help me? It's not always easy to see what's happening in those contracts. If you're not,
No,
I mean,
I
if you're
know
not
we
an
first.
engineer or you're not an expert, like, some of your folks are just experts at tracking that down.
Yeah, that was I was going to get into how we work together. I know we really do a good job at I think at
Oh yeah,
Node 40 about parsing out the data in the smart contracts and trying to understand, at least contextualize it, or set up the framework for it. Let's say it was like we just released Uniswap v3, so we have the framework now for Uniswap
yeah,
v3, on which we can layer on other stuff as clients come in and say, hey, I want you to take the same framework and do it on Arbitrum, GMX, something like that. So well,
absolutely.
how do you mentioned Node, whether it's Node 40 or other, how do you use Node 40? How do you use these kinds of companies at Fuel?
So, I mean, working with you guys has been brilliant because, right, you not only have the technical expertise, your analysts that can really dig into the transactions and the contracts and understand those transactions and the movement between wallets for you know a big volume of transactions. Um, but we have you and your accounting expertise, and you have people on the team along with yourself that are like, okay, from an accounting perspective, here's how we need to look at this, or here are your options for how to look at it, right? Like you really bring up all the issues and help us as accountants help our clients really, say, okay, this is the best way to account for that, and this is the information we have, and the fact that you have provided that, right? Like for us, we really lean on you guys a lot for that help. And yeah, there are clients we wouldn't be able to serve without Node 40 as the underlying subledger for their activity.
And when you mentioned smart contracts, let's say you have an accountant that's getting into this space and they say, well, what's the issue with the smart contracts? Like, what's the problem? What what is your biggest hurdle when dealing with those quote unquote smart contracts?
Oh my God. It's that you don't always know what they're doing. Sometimes it's an address, right? It's not named, right? Like if it says, there are plenty of smart contracts that are like, oh, Uniswap bridge. Well, I know what that's doing, right? And I look for the other side somewhere else. But if it's just an address and you're putting money in and then money came out, but it was a different amount, you're like, okay, did I loan that money? Did I stake that money? Am I getting rewards along the way, or are they accruing rewards for me over time? What is happening in that contract? And the details out there are not clear if you haven't seen that before, if the language in the contract itself that you can see or the underlying code, if it's not obvious or you're not an engineer, right? Like it is code, right? Like if you're not a person that codes and that codes on the blockchain, you may not understand what you're reading, right? It's like you can know JavaScript, but can you read C+? Like,
I
like,
know, Wendy.
is it the
That's like
same?
me and you. I'm the same. I've learned from some of my team members, whether it's Joe,
Hmm.
like little tricks of the trade, because I'm not a
Absolutely.
coder. And I'm like, okay, going through this contract, and it's not a contract. It's not like something you read like a piece of paper
There
and you
are
go,
there
oh,
are
okay, I know this is a loan now.
it's a different language. It's
Yeah,
literally a different language, and it can be a black hole. And you need, I mean, and sometimes you need the client. You
yeah,
you need to call your client and go, okay, I have no idea what this contract does. You explain it to me. What's happening out here with these sets of transactions?
yeah.
And you know what? We're not do that.
No, yeah,
If
we
if if
same here.
if you right, I can't possibly know everything there is to know about Web3. It is impossible. It is moving too fast. Even if I was able to literally know everything right now, somebody'd write something tomorrow or issue a token tomorrow that works completely differently. And that's the world we're living in. Or like we call it the Wild West, right? Like every sheriff in every town has their own laws and their own rules, and they do things differently. So yeah, you have to be humble enough to know what you don't know and ask so that you can get it right. And then once you know, now you know that thing. And you have to start at the beginning, right? Like accountants, like we're always saying too, like we'll hire really good accountants as long as they're rap curious and are not afraid of tech, right? We have an amazing team of folks that are willing to say, I don't know what that thing is or
Yeah.
what that does on the blockchain, or explain that to me one more time, but they want to learn it and then apply it. the other thing about the accounting space is, right, like what if nobody in our team has ever seen the thing before? But the first time we saw an ordinal, we were like, all right, how's that going to work? What's the accounting for that? Like we reached out to like 5 different people, some tax partners, some other accounting firms that we know. Like, have you seen it? What are you doing? How are you managing that? What kind of guidance have you gotten? Have you seen anything? That's what we do. We collaborate because and we're really making this up as we go. Lack of guidance and lack of clarity on the transactions, the requirement that a smart contract needs to have a white paper next to it saying exactly what it does. Right? That's not a requirement out there. Maybe someday it will be, but right now getting information is hard, and you have to lean on everybody in the space to
It's a
keep learning.
it's a big learning lesson for me. It makes it a lot faster to just say, I don't know, go try to understand something and then, talk to people
Yeah,
that still don't understand it even after looking it up on ChatGPT or the internet.
absolutely, absolutely. And ChatGPT, well, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
you got to be a little careful there, I think.
I know. Um, so just want to hit a couple points and close
Yeah,
more like
yeah.
the future. Well, first, I guess, what do you see in terms of the industry in the last couple of years now? Year and a half at Fuel3, and then period before that. How do you see the industry maturing in terms of the accounting space now? Do you see people can compared to a couple of years ago and saying, I really want to get this right? I mean, what do you see as the future now in the next couple of years about just like getting the accounting done correctly? Or
Absolutely. I
or is
mean,
the industry
people,
the same as it was 5 years ago?
it's not this at all. I mean, first of all, there are resources, right? Like you talk about 6, 7, 8 years ago, were there even subledgers? Could you even pull that into a subledger, do accounting, and then report on it? Like we are in a space where everything is growing really fast and people are creating amazing things. And it's really recent, right? Like I can't say that enough, right? Like even 5 years ago, like you try to Google, like staking, accounting, best practice, like you'd come up with absolutely nothing. Like, but now there's so much more out there. More people are talking about it. There's more communities and more places where, accountants and there's folks that are running, you guys are out there talking to people about how to do these things. Um, People are talking about it more. I think, though, that there's still a lot of people that don't want to have to rely on the US regulatory system to get there, right? They just don't. And they're afraid that the regulations will deter real growth in the industry. It's an issue for sure. Um, and there are people that are going offshore. There are a lot of people that are like, yeah, but also I'm going offshore. I don't want to watch this. I want to know what I can do and can't do. And I don't want to guess that suddenly tomorrow I'm going to be in the spotlight because somebody decides I might have done something that wasn't perfect. I don't know. Like it's
Wendy,
hard.
I used to do a lot of international, and the issue I have with this industry offshore is from is my personal issue is more like the discipline. To go offshore, you've got to be incredibly disciplined. Any mistakes and you're brought back onshore, all that type of stuff. That's my main thing about. I mean, if I were an advisor, that would be my main concern. But I have heard the
Yep.
offshoring type of arguments, and they have there are obviously good arguments for trying to not, like you said, not have to worry about the regulatory system here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think so. I think, as we bring more knowledgeable and more younger people, into the agencies that are looking at this and trying to understand how best to make the space safe, regulate it in a way that's appropriate, and provide guidance on accounting and reporting for it. Um, I think it'll mature. I think it'll get to a place where everybody's happy. I can't imagine that it's not, right? Because I think that's what everybody wants. Even the folks in government or the folks that are, in TradFi that are like really concerned about it and don't really understand it yet. I think they don't want to stifle financial growth, and crypto is going to provide that. So at the end of the day, everybody's going to have to figure it out together. And that's what I think.
What about the plans at Fuel3? What do you guys, how do you as a firm, how do you see your future in this space?
So, we learn new things every day and we get to meet the most interesting people every day. I think I see us growing. I see us taking on more clients. I see us, continuing to serve the clients we have as they grow. Um, and, and riding this new finance, as far as we can take it. I mean, we're definitely in this for the long haul.
Cool. Okay. And then last, I know we talked about a little earlier, you're going to BTC Nashville. This may be
Yeah,
out by the time we get this out, it'll already be done. BTC
I'll already be
Nashville.
home,
But
but that's
what do
okay.
you see, what do you see in the next couple of years just for the industry as a whole? Do you think they can achieve their goals of um um a more mainstream implementation, ways to get people onto digital asset and blockchain platforms, more synergies with TradFi over the next couple of years?
I think so. I think a couple years is might be a little hard. I think,
Yeah.
you talk about 5 years from now, absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, I think the issue is information, is UI, is the ease of using crypto and of implementing it in various spaces, and being able to report on it, being able to understand what happened out there, right? Um, that's going to be the really important part. And the exchanges and the custodian solutions and the platforms, they're going to have to help us along by being able to give us more information or help us track that information in these transactions, being able to interact easily with, like subledgers like Node 40, right? And that API, all those APIs need to work all the time, right? I mean, if you've ever tried to research the transactions on Cardano, you know that like it's completely different than if I have an ETH wallet
Yeah.
or if I'm right like in Coinbase somewhere. Like none of those things talk the same to anybody, and it's cumbersome. And it's the thing I think it's one of the biggest things that keeps this rolling slowly.
Well, I know we have some friends in this space that talk also about like self-regulatory standards that are set up like within the industry for various things, data, accounting, whatever it
Hmm.
might be, that, allow the industry itself to start forming like you said earlier, there's nothing that tells you what that smart contract does. Maybe one day there will be
I
that
think,
allows.
yeah. And I think it's a whole new career path, I think, for financial folks that do coding or that, educate themselves to be that kind of analyst to cross that bridge, right? And be that new person that does that analytics, right? Folks like the folks you have working with you. Definitely.
Oh yeah, wow! It's a cool space to be. If I were, some 20 some years old, it'd be a really cool space to be in right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. The future engineers and accountants and legal folks, CPAs that are coming, they're graduating from college. It's like this is a whole new world. This is a different way of doing those jobs than you're probably even seeing. We have an intern working for us, fabulous, and right, like none of his accounting classes, and he's going to be a senior, have even talked about the blockchain and the financial impact of how that works.
I have a young relative of mine. I was just talking about other. He's like 22. He's going into accounting. He's a little worried. His friends in the industry and hear about all this AI stuff, right? I mean,
Right.
hear the rumors, and I said, well, I should mention, look into crypto. It's in a space that is, it's going to take some time for people to figure out, and a young person like him should be able to do it. So I
Absolutely.
told him I thought accounting is still a great opportunity, great field, and I was reading an interesting article today about AI and the fact that there's exuberance. It's going to be something really interesting in the future, but whether it's something that takes over in a couple of years is a different story.
I think, I think there's a lot to AI, but like anything else, right? Like if it's not used appropriately, it's going to give you garbage, right? Like garbage in, garbage out,
Garbage
right?
in, garbage out.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it has some great use cases. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, we ended on a totally different note, but Wendy, it's been great working with you. Thanks a lot for, just giving some of your time for this podcast, and I hope we get to do it again. But it's always great talking to you. And honestly, the industry is lucky to have a team like you, Fuel3, Mel, Lisa, and others to, yeah, because I see it as very important for this industry to finally be able to take off, get this stuff down.
Thanks.
Just the accounting plus a bunch of other regulatory issues taken care of.
Absolutely. And right back at you, Norm. I mean, it's been great working with you and the team at Node 40. Y'all are an excellent partner. And chatting today has been an absolute blast. Thanks for having me.